All right, here we go. Welcome, you guys. We have a huge audience coming in today. Mastering marketing with examples and inspiration from outside of the real estate industry. This is something, Jimmy, I know that you and I do obsessively. I don't think enough real estate agents and teams actually do this because there is a mimicry in this industry. What's Connie doing? What's Amy doing? What's Tim doing? What's Joe doing? And you should do that. But I think some of the best inspiration comes from companies, brands, marketers, ads that are not in the real estate industry, because if you can take a concept from beyond and bring it in and do it right, it's going to stand out because it's not the same mail or ad or email or whatever it may be that everyone else happens to be doing. The other thing that I wanted to point out here is that, and this is where I actually want to start, a lot of these ideas, Jimmy, come from a series that you do called JZL, which is Jimmy's Zen Learnings, right? Talk about that idea, because a lot of the people that we work with are the team leader. They do run the brokerage. They do run the team.
Yeah.
A lot of people tuning in are on the team themselves, but as the person that owns the company, runs the company, the head of the company, talk about JZL just in general, because you do a really good job of sort of teaching down and passing along the things you're learning while you're the CEO. It feels like it can help anybody. I know I always look forward to those. So should everybody be doing like Jimmy's Zen Learnings? What is it? How do you get it out to the team? Start with that.
Well, first off, I feel like you have such a better wardrobe than I do. Every time I look at your shirts, I'm always impressed. I love them. I love the pair shirt. What's the backstory behind that?
Well, the backstory is that when your brand is amazing, it goes real big, because Jordan, he's got football teams wearing Jordans, right?
Yeah.
He's got, Oklahoma's got a Jordan logo on their college football jersey. Jordan is the official sponsor of Paris Saint-Germain, which is PSG, which is Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe for anybody that likes soccer. And they're a Jordan sponsored team. So yeah, it's crazy, but that must feel great for him.
Well, what's wild about this? This is a quick aside, and I'll answer your question about JZLs. The reason why Michael Jordan is the best brand in the world, and it's not even an argument, is because you can use it in place of something to describe how good it is. So I can say, Chris is the Michael Jordan of real estate marketers. And you know instantly what I mean. It means he's the greatest. It means he's the best. And so I think there are so few words or associations that you can have that can immediately communicate to someone that something is really good at their job. So I think Michael Jordan, because it's so synonymous with greatness, is the greatest brand. So to answer your question about JZL, one of the things I like to do, and one of my beliefs and principles, is that you should absolutely, as Chris was saying earlier, look outside the industry for inspiration. And the reason why I do it is because if you're a team lead, or you're running a brokerage, or you aspire to do that in the future, you have to recognize that one of your core responsibilities is strategy. Your job is to set the plan that the team is going to go execute, whether that's setting the goals or the actual tactics you're going to use. And you should look outside of the industry to find people who know how to set strategy, who know how to build out a business plan. And so I love looking at specifically S1s, Chris. When a company goes public, they have to basically disclose all the reasons why someone should invest. It's like the greatest sales pitches of all time are S1s. I love looking at these as a mechanism to learn around how do great businesses think about strategy. And so I think it is something, if you desire to lead a team, you need to recognize that strategy is part of your job responsibilities. And the best way to do that is to analyze other companies and then distill it down into the key findings and then share that with your team. So I'm a huge fan of it, obviously. I do it for myself as much as I do it for the team, Chris.
Yeah, and you do an email, right? We get it right in our inbox. Probably has one of the best open rates of any email you send, because when your boss sends you an email, you typically open it and read it. The other thing I like you do is you often give a little bit of homework at the end, like what's our version of that, right? Like, what can we do? And that's what I think people are going to love about today. And this is, I think, partly like our calling in the industry is take an example that's clearly amazing and then say, okay, but I'm a realtor. So what is my version of Postmates, the Uber campaign, whatever it is that we end up pointing out today? Well, let's get into it, Jimmy. I'm going to get into the first one here. And this was one of your first JZLs, actually. And this is kind of top of mind for me because I've got two kids that are at that age where braces are coming into play. It's giving me terrible flashbacks to when I had them myself.
Yes.
You're bullish on a company called Smile Direct Club.
Yeah.
What is it that you think we should take away from their marketing, messaging?
Well, first thing is I wish I knew about this company when I got braces, because I got adult braces. But I was so vain, I got them behind my teeth, which was a terrible idea. Yeah, it was. I would definitely warn the retainers at night. So here's where I think the takeaway is. When you look at their website, you'll notice they say clear aligners for up to 60% less than braces. Now, on the surface, you're going to say, oh, well, this company is just promoting a discount. But if you do that, you're actually missing the point. Because a product or a service, they have three layers. They have the augmented layer, which is the pixie dust, Chris, the little touch points that sort of make it special. You have the actual product, which is what do you actually sell? And then you have the core product. And that is the psychological needs that you're fulfilling for the consumer and the real reason why they buy. Now, our Smile Direct Club recognizes that their actual product, which is retainers and braces, both accomplish the exact same thing. So they can't really talk about how their retainers make people's teeth straighter than braces, because they don't. They can't really talk too much about the fact that it takes less time, because it sort of does, but maybe not so much. It's a small distinction there. So they have to recognize that their actual product is incredibly similar to their competitor. And so when there's a lack of differentiation, you have to go back to the core product. What is the underlying psychological need that Smile Direct Club solves here, Chris? And that is affordability. And so when they message about 60% less than braces, what they're saying is affordability is absolutely essential. Now, I did some research on this. Only 40% of the counties in the US have an orthodontic. The average cost of braces is upwards of $9,000 to $10,000, right? So you got some big bills coming pretty soon, unless you get the Smile Direct Club. And it is inaccessible and expensive to most Americans. And a lot of adults want to get braces, and a lot of adults want to have affordable options for their kids. So what they've done is they said, our core product is affordability and accessibility, and we're going to message that as a point of differentiation. So to tie it to real estate, the way I would think about it is, when everybody in the market does the same thing, Chris, when everyone has the same actual product, which is they help people buy and help people sell real estate, you have to pinpoint what is the thing that you do different than everybody else, and make that the absolute central theme to all of your outward marketing, Chris.
Yeah, one of the things that's top of mind for me right now is web design, because I'm working on the conversion code too. And there's this really cool study about how people are drawn to people's faces. They do heat maps, and they basically show like, where do the eyes go? It's called eye tracking software. And when there's a face on the screen, that's where your eyes go. And in this example, you kind of look at everybody over there on the right. One of the questions I would have had with my example is, I wonder if this works for kids. Look at the bottom left picture. They're telling me that it works for kids. They don't have to say it works for kids. Clearly she's a kid, right? So that's on purpose. But I'll give you one other cool pro tip. That's a sneak peek of the book, Jimmy. The best thing to do technically is if it's a face, but it's looking at the headline. Because if the face is looking at the copy, then you literally go face headline versus face, 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 face. You don't pay as much attention to the copy. So the copy is very simple and straightforward. I love the call to action as well. Am I a candidate? I've been researching the impact of copy on conversion rates of people clicking buttons. When you put submit, that one doesn't do real good versus hitting go or learn more. So am I a candidate, I think is really smart, because that's kind of the next steps. Like, will this work for me? So I like it. Beautiful design, simple, clean. And you're right, the messaging. What I thought of when I say, well, how do I do this if I'm a real estate agent, but I'm not a commission cutter? Right? Because like, this is just, they're just selling price with that headline, and for the most part. Well, isn't it true that when you sell your home with a real estate agent compared to without one, that you sell it for a lot more? NAR puts that data out every single year. So it's 11% or more on average that people get when they actually have professional agent helping them. So then what I could do is I could say, sell your home for 11% more than if you sell it yourself.
Love it.
You know, kind of reversing it to where it's a pro. Or what's the average sales price in the market that you work in? If it's 500K, 11% more is $55,000. If you use us, you'll sell your home for $55,000 more than if you don't use us. Right. That to me is sort of where I would connect the dots between this and our industry.
It's a great example. Before we go to the next slide here, Chris, right now, just in the chat for us, how many times do you sell a home for more than the Zestimate? Just in the chat right now. Is that common? Is it uncommon? Do you typically sell homes for more than the Zestimate? Because what I would do, exactly what you're saying there, Chris, I would say, you know, we sell homes on average for, call it $6,233 above the Zestimate, because everyone knows what the Zestimate is, and now you can sort of point it out. So if you look at this, right, you know, Tali's saying yes. I don't really look at the Zestimate. We'll see that I think, but here's the thing, Sarah, your customers do, right? So that's what really matters here, is your customers do. Simone's saying, yeah, more than the Zestimate. So I would use that. That'd be my angle. I love your angle though, Chris. All right.
Yeah, and then another thing, as we get into tip 2, and I really like that Zestimate one as well. And you could even use one example, like the last home we sold for $48,000 more than Zillow said it was worth. Right. Number 2 on the same note is copy. And, you know, we say copy is king. Copy is what qualifies. Copy is what builds trust. Copy is, you know, words. It's the words that serious people read. And you found a few examples of clever copy. I love this one from Chipotle, but talk through this. What did they do a good job of here?
Well, this is kind of like what's really clever about this is it's a little bit of subliminal messaging, where by intentionally focusing your eyes on the bold, they're also enticing you to read the things that are not bold. So I think it's actually a really clever, like, it's almost like you got a hidden message or an Easter egg in your ad campaign. So you say, you read immediately, our ingredients are better. And okay, the next thing I want to do is like, well, what do they actually mean? Read the entire billboard. So I think what was clever about it was it got people to read the entire billboard, which is very hard to do. B, it communicated very clearly what they wanted to communicate, which is better ingredients. And C, I thought it was a little bit tongue in cheek, you know, just trying to get people to laugh a little bit, which I think is always a good idea when you're doing traditional print or traditional kind of billboard media. I think it's a fantastic concept here. So I'm a big fan of this ad campaign.
Yeah, here's a couple more. Walk me through these. The one that when I was looking at the deck for today's call, the one that jumped off the screen for me was the one star review, which definitely I've never seen any of the agents share their 1-star reviews. They always share their 5-star reviews. Are these what you would sort of call like the honest ad?
Yeah, it's a great characterization of them, Chris. It's sort of the anti-sales pitch. So the one at the bottom left here for us is for this ski resort, which is, they don't have any bunny trails here. It's all advanced skiers only. So when you look at the ad, They're taking a negative complaint, which is actually a positive, which is why they want to attract people who want really hard courses to ski down or slopes to ski down. It speaks to the exact audience they're trying to market to. So this is sort of the anti-sales pitch / honest campaign. I think Spotify does a phenomenal job. The thing about Spotify that I think they do with their ad campaigns, because you should check it out after today's call, is they sort of like tell you things that you know about yourself that you're kind of embarrassed about. So the one on the left-hand side, it's okay, the breakup was mutual. And then it's obviously a sad song about how much they miss their ex-girlfriend or boyfriend. And I think they sort of, shine a light on kind of these embarrassing moments that we tell people externally they're just not true. And Dove, you know this already, Chris, but Dove has sort of been pioneers in a lot of ways with authenticity in their marketing. I remember Dove did a commercial many years ago that still sticks with me today. It was the one where they, and I believe it was Dove, someone could fact check me in the chat here, but they asked people to describe themselves to a sketch artist. And then they had the sketch artist draw two versions, their description and then what they saw. And this distinction between it was when you describe yourself, you talk about your flaws, your wrinkles, right? Maybe all the things that you don't like about yourself. But when someone else sees you, they see you through an entirely different light and they focus on sort of things that they find appealing or attractive about you, whatever it is. Sure. And so Dove has always been about like shining a light on like authenticity in their marketing, and they've done a wonderful job with it. And as you can see here, they're doing this with the this campaign as well. Yeah, well, I have to say, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Dove is a little bit of a luxury good, like price-wise. I know that sounds funny because it's so common, but if you look at the price of a bar of soap, Dove does not have the cheapest soap. You know what I mean? Like Irish Spring, Yardley. There's some other companies that are cheaper, sometimes significantly cheaper. So, I almost feel like when you're not the least expensive, you have to be the most specific with who you're right for. I picture, I was trying to think of what is the realtor equivalent of the 1-star review. And it would probably be something like, Veronica spends so much time with every client that she didn't get back to me quickly. It's like, all right, well, I prefer someone that spends a lot of time with me over someone that just responds really quickly. But I think that's really smart. It also does what's called pattern interrupt because you're just not used to it. So this is really good stuff. I love it. And yeah, Dove, they are a case study in a lot of marketing and advertising examples. This is one from the Economist, and I felt bad. I didn't read it quickly. It made me feel like the Economist is not for me. Well, I'm the type of guy who pretends to read the Economist, but doesn't actually read the Economist. And so the Economist is like a very intellectual, highbrow magazine that talks about how the supply chain is going to impact oil prices in Q3 of 2022, right? Like really heady stuff, right? But that's their audience, right? Their audience are people who don't read, let's say, CNN or Bloomberg or Bloomberg's probably a bad example, but let's say don't read I don't know, don't subscribe to Jim Cramer, right? And Mad Money. These are people who think of themselves as more, thoughtful investors and thought leaders, if you will. So they do a really good job of being assholes in their ads to the average person, and like making people who read this and say, oh, Economist readers have already worked it out, making them feel special. And it creates this a feeling of you feel elite if you kind of get it with an Economist ad. So they have, and again, a lot of the stuff that Chris and I are talking about today, we want to give you, we want you to do some homework afterwards and do your own research. But if you look at a lot of the Economist ads, you see what's pretty consistent across the board is they create a sense of elitism through their advertising campaign because that's who they market to, Chris. Yeah, well, it reminds me, and I don't read The Economist, but I was thinking about there's these ads for games, like when you're playing a mobile app game. They'll have an ad for a game and it'll say 98% of people couldn't do this, right? Like 98% of people couldn't solve puzzle number 3. And it just like makes you want to go see what puzzle number 3 was.
it's like a challenge, like a call to arms. And then I really like this one because I've seen people get clever with, no spam, and I've seen people get clever with, we respect your email address, the kind of general disclaimer. What company is this?
Oh, geez, that's a good question. I'm gonna find out afterwards. I'll drop it into the recording, the chat. It was a random hot sauce company. It wasn't like what's the one Cholula?
Sriracha? Yeah.
Well, it wasn't Sriracha. It wasn't Cholula. It was another one. It's like a boutique brand. I'll find it. I'll drop it into the chat for you. But I think what's really powerful about this is, yes, they communicate their value proposition in a kind of cheeky way where they kind of get you to subscribe. But like, wouldn't you be 10 times more likely to subscribe to their newsletter on their website after reading this copy?
Yeah. Well, that's what's happening in a couple of these. They're actually, their unique value proposition is crystal clear.
Yep.
Through something that's a little bit clever. I like that. It's also just beautiful. It pops,
It does. So I think what you're starting to see is that when you understand what your value proposition is, all of a sudden you can start writing copy that communicates it. Now, my advice to our marketing team and everyone that we coach at Curaytor is, and Chris does this naturally. So like when him and I work together, I try to do the opposite of what he does. But like my advice is to turn the volume up. So you have an idea, turn the volume up. Chris is already at a level 10, so I'm always coming trying to turn him down to a level 8. But like that's what great marketers do. You take the idea and you got to turn the volume up on it a little bit. So I think you do a great job of this. Have some fun with it, and hopefully get some better subscribers from it, Chris.
Yeah, well, because the time change was this weekend. When we put out one of our first websites at Curaytor, it said, it's 2014. We don't need a reminder to set the clock back on our iPhones.
Yes.
Right. Which that was our way of saying, if you're old school marketer, you might need our help. Number 3, Jimmy, and I love Dibble. For anybody that's never used Dibble, I'm actually going to just do a quick live demo here, Jimmy, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
just because I think it's such a cool website.
While you're pulling it up, I'm just going to answer 2 questions in the chat. First off, shout out to Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. It is Yellowbird hot sauce.
Awesome.
Thank you. That's what the company is. And the question we had from, I believe it was from Nicholas here. He was talking about luxury. How would the Dove ad work for luxury? And Nicholas, what I would say there to apply this to real estate, you might say something like, for people who have unrealistic expectations of selling their home, we got you. And so you almost like can play into luxury or high end. They were super high demanding, right? So don't like stray away from that. Just lean into that. If you need a call back in 5 minutes, we've got your back, right? We're your company. So it's almost like lean into the sort of like, rich people tend to have everything at their disposal and don't wait. They, avoid waiting in most of their life. They're paying, premium for it. So I think it's a good example of using that. All right, Chris, you're pulling up Dibble right now. This is the
I just think in general, Dribble's a great resource. If you guys go to Dibble and just type in like real estate, or you could type in market reports, these are some of the best designers in the world, basically just showcasing their portfolio.
Yep.
So you can learn a lot. What I usually do is find things I like from here and then send that to our design team and say, hey, can we cook something up kind of like this? It's DRIBBBLE. But they added a feature recently that I know you're a huge fan of, and it's actually like a video intro. I think they call it pitch. Talk about that idea. Why did you feel the need to point out what Dribble's doing?
Well, I was on a webinar earlier today with Jason Cassidy. He's doing a 6-hour live stream, like a telethon, where he's raising money for charity. So shout out to Jason Cassidy. If you guys are not following Jason Cassidy on Instagram, you definitely should. And one of the things that we talked about in that call was how, video marketing is the current and future state of marketing, and short form is sort of the K. And so what I love about what Dribble's doing here, and you can see it, is when someone lands on that web page, there's almost like a welcome video. And the equivalent that I would say here, Chris, is that you and I both know when you go to a YouTube channel, sometimes they have like a welcome trailer. which kind of like welcomes you to your YouTube channel. Like, hey, on our YouTube channel, you're gonna find information about marketing and sales and growth. Like, no one really has it on their website. They have videos on their website, but they don't really have a welcome video. Hey, welcome to our website. We specialize in helping people sell homes in the north end of Boston. If you're looking to sell your home, like, here's what the next steps look like. There's no welcome video. So I think what Dribble's doing, which is so smart, is because they connect businesses and entrepreneurs with designers, is they're saying, hey, designers, when someone lands on your portfolio page, which is all your work, have an intro video that welcomes them. It builds a human connection between the brand and their prospective customer. So I love this idea. And this is total, no one's doing this in real estate, Chris. I love the idea of adding like a welcome to my site video on the homepage of your website to build a better connection with your audience.
Yeah, and they just use the phone, the vertical screen. They have it floating in the bottom right where you can quickly open it up. Bio videos, welcome videos are definitely like the video not enough people have done yet. Lots of people doing them for their listings, not a lot of them doing it just to humanize yourself. But you're right. Like, once you put a name and a face together and you hear them, which is a big part of communicating clearly, it's super helpful. So I love what they're doing, a video intro for your profile. Clearly anybody can do this. I actually remember there was a guy that did this, Jimmy, for the purposes of lead conversion, which is sort of what I'm always kind of studying and obsessing about.
Yeah.
And what he would do is he basically would auto reply with a video text, or when he got a lead, he would just, go into his saved, photo album and grab it. And it was just like, hey, this is Chris. Thanks so much for reaching out. I just want to let you know I'm going to be the one that's following up with you. You were on our website earlier. Hope you're doing well. And Jimmy, this guy even had, this was really smart. He even had a nice weather version and a snow version. Okay. And because he's up north, we don't, in Florida, we either have the hot version where you're sweaty or the nice weather. Yeah. And so depending on the day and how the weather was, he would choose the snow version or the non-snow version. And that can truly help with converting leads. A lot of times we fill out these forms, we're not sure exactly that we even filled one out. We're not really sure who the person is that's going to reach back out to us. So that human connection quickly was helping him get a much bigger reply rate to the leads that he was getting. Number 4, there's only been a few DTC companies that have gone public. Basically, like, think of it like a Shopify store that ends up becoming publicly traded because it's so popular. Figs is one of those. DTC is direct to consumer. The reality is that in some ways, Jimmy, real estate agents are DTC. All of their messaging is to the consumer. So talk a little bit about Figs, because I know they just went public. They're massively valuable. And the other thing they did is they kind of tackled a boring bucket, like scrubs. You know what I'm saying? So what about Figs? Why did you choose them?
Well, first off, I think you and I would both agree, Chris, when you look at those ad campaigns, just the design of them, how clean and simple they are. And I think this is a common thing when you think about design, the negative space they have around the text and how readable the text is. I think about the traditional real estate ad billboard, and they just cram as much shit as they possibly can cram in these things. They got their phone number, they got their website, they got their broker logo, they got their logo, they got their team logo, and they've got a picture of themselves, and then they got a picture of the community. And it's so busy that it's impossible for the consumer to really even know what they're supposed to do with it. And so whereas you could definitely get results from a direct response campaign, which is like, hey, do this and then get this in return. What you want to think about when you talk about brand advertising is you're trying to communicate a message to build an association. So what Figs does here, Figs, by the way, they have an NPS score, and you covered this in your book, Chris, how important NPS scores are. They have an NPS score of 81, which is absolutely world class. For context, that's better than Amazon, that's better than Apple, that's better than Netflix, right? Their customers love their product. Why do their customers love their product? Well, if you look at the ad to the right-hand side, it says, think outside the boxy scrubs. And so scrubs, as you were saying earlier, Chris, they are historically very boxy. So what they're doing here is they're doing a technique in marketing called laddering. And this is when you point out something that's wrong with the alternative without saying what you actually do. The best example of this historically was when Bud Light said, we don't have corn syrup. They didn't say anything about Bud Light and what Bud Light actually had and the ingredients. They said no corn syrup. And I think believe it was Miller or Coors they were really against in that super old commercial. Maybe we'll drop a link in for you guys can check that out. So this is laddering. They're saying, hey, it's not like they're saying our scrubs fit your body and they're comfortable and they're durable. They're saying it's the opposite of the traditional cheap boxy scrubs. And the ad to the left-hand side, which is an opportunity for you to think, and I'd love for you to share your thoughts on how you might apply this to real estate, Chris. But the one on the left-hand side is more of an association. So oat milk has an association of like a higher quality version of milk for, bougie people who don't want to drink cow milk, which sounds weird saying cow milk, but don't want to drink regular milk. It's like we're the oat milk of scrubs. They could have easily said, like what Glenda Baker says, I'm the Michael Jordan of real estate agents. That's sort of what they're trying to communicate on the left-hand side. You already know about oat milk. We're that version for scrubs.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot in real estate because sometimes the old school archaic process. So like one would be like, if you prefer not to come down to the office, I'm going to need you to come down to the office to take a look at this. Or like we threw our fax machine out a decade ago, meaning agents still fax, right? You're sort of reverse engineering.
Yep.
And I like the oat milk of real estate. I'm the oat milk of realtors. By the way, oat milk costs more, Jimmy. It costs almost twice as much for half as much, right? So another example where price kind of goes out the window. Couple questions came in the chat. Curaytor clients that want to add a welcome video. I'll just touch on that really quickly. There's several ways you can do that. You don't need to wait for us. You can add videos above the fold on your homepage. I think Jason actually has a nice one. If you guys go to thecassidyteam.com, you can actually do what's called an announcement at the top, and it could just say, welcome to my website. I'd love to meet you. 15-second intro video. Some of our clients use like a chat tool, Jimmy, on the bottom right called Intercom. That allows for a pop-up with a play button and a video. So definitely lots of ways to do that now. But I love this name association. Like when we think about Silicon Valley and software and investing and kind of the space we're in, sometimes the quickest way to explain what you're working on is to literally say, it's like Uber for this. It's like Airbnb for dogs. It's like Uber, but for bikes. You know what I mean? Like, because people know what that is. So this is a good kind of way to put your brand next to a brand people love. Yeah. This next one is Adams. No matter what they do, they're not going to sell me because I'm all in on Nike. I'm all in on Jordans. There is no way that I would wear that shoe on the screen. But, and then they say they're not cheap. I'm like, $129 is not that much. Like, I mean, my wife can tell you, I've definitely bought a few pairs of shoes that were a lot more than $129. But what's up with this company, Jimmy? And are you wearing Adams?
It's hard to, give this company credit because I think the shoes are so ugly. But but you and I are not their target audience, right? Let's just be clear about that.
Sure.
This is an organization, and I think, and what they're doing here is, there's a great Benjamin Graham quote, which is price is what you pay, value is what you get. And a lot of people in real estate sell price. You look at even what Redfin does. What is Redfin's big message? 1% listing fee. Now I think it's like 1.5% listing fee. They're selling price. They're not really selling experience or selling value. And so that's why they don't really command the space they occupy. They have an incredible brand. They have an incredible website. Like everybody knows who Redfin is, yet they don't get nearly the market share they should because they're always focused on price. At least that's my perspective. So in this case, I think Adams does a great job at basically communicating the fact that, no, we're not cheap, but here's why. And I would actually say, if you take a moment and go through the hard work of explaining why in great detail, why you charge 6% commission. It is going to make that sales pitch when you're sitting in a listing presentation 10 times better. Chris, you know this already. When people typically get in front of a seller and they talk about commission, they kind of say the same thing every other agent says. So I think Adams is a good example of people who are able to say, hey, we're not the least expensive option. In fact, we're a premium solution. And here's why. Now, if you go to the next slide, we talked a little bit about this. They're also mission driven. And I think that's a big part of it, right? They want to highlight and showcase other creators in the space. And so the thing about Adams is, yes, they're not cheap, and they tell you why they're not cheap, but they're also a mission-driven organization. And some of the data behind this, Chris, mission-driven organizations are 4 times more likely to be purchased than non-mission-driven brands. Mission-driven companies are 4.5 times more likely to be referred to someone as a friend. Think about things like Allbirds, Chris, or even Warby Parker, some of these other direct-to-consumer brands.
Tom's.
Tom's is a great example. What does Tom's do? They give a pair of shoes every time you buy shoes, right?
Yeah, Bonobos gives socks to homeless shelters. And the fact that we can name so many means it really resonates. I know in our industry, there's Give Back Homes, an organization where, you're basically dedicating a percentage of your commission to, helping people. There was a viral campaign last week that said, for every picture of your pet you upload, we'll plant a tree. Because there was a new feature on Instagram where in a story, people can submit a picture, and it went viral. It went crazy. They're going to be planting a lot of trees. So yeah, I think when you can add a genuine, legitimate, mission-driven statement, but you're right. Now that I look at this ad, okay, this is a brilliant ad that every real estate agent should copy, and that we should copy at Curaytor, that says Curaytor isn't cheap. Here's why. Because we hold your hand, because we respond quickly, because we obsess about quality, because we pay our employees really well and give them benefits. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we reinvest most of our profit into making our products and services better, like, because we don't work with people that are cheap either. Like, I think that's okay. And I'm sure everybody listening can think of, like, what is your version of they wouldn't last as long as they do? They wouldn't be made of the best materials. They wouldn't come in quarter sizes to fit your feet. What is your version of that? Because, when you're not the cheapest and everybody else seems to be willing to kind of race to the bottom, you just have to explain why you're at the top. So actually, I really like that ad.
You gave me an idea, and this may be an opportunity for us to think about using the recent changes happening with Zillow. Now, I've already publicly said, and you've publicly said, about the fact that this is obviously something you have to be thoughtful about, because people did lose their job. Now, these are people who work for Zillow. They're obviously incredibly talented people. They're all going to find a great job. So to be clear, don't feel too bad for these individuals. They're going to find a great job. But it does suck to lose your job, and it can upend your life. But putting that aside for a second, I think the thing that jumps out to me about messaging around, like, being not cheap, and just being about mission, is think about it. When the pandemic originally hit, who were the first people to close shop? All these, virtual website, well, buy your house and sell your house, like Open Door, they closed down, right? Zillow, they closed down. It's like, so I think the fact is that you guys were still open. You were still for business, right? So, like, in my mind, Chris, I'm like, it's like, websites come and go. We don't. And so if you got 30 years of experience in your area, and let's say you're a second generation realtor, I think about like Nick Slocum and in Rhode Island, who's, Phil, his father started the company. He's, taking over the reins. Like, it's websites come and go. We don't. Slocum Realty. To me, that's
I like the pandemic one, right? When the pandemic hit, Open Door quit. We didn't. We're always here for
Open Door became Closed Door, right?
Yeah. So number 6, and this one people get nervous about, Jimmy. I actually, one of my favorite ads in the history of real estate. Somebody could probably find this if they help us Google it and look for the link. But it said, it was for a new construction condominium.
Yes.
And it said, our building is so beautiful that other buildings want to have sex with it. That ad went viral. It struck a chord. There's been some other risky campaigns. that, have not paid off. And I think when you say risky, I don't think you mean controversial, right? Because like there was some stuff that happened in Denver and it was like the Fresh Prince of Bel Air parody. It didn't do really good. And we've seen a lot of people, they almost always mess it up when they try to get risky, Jimmy. That's my honest first reaction here.
Sure.
How can it pay off? How do you find that balance between, nailing and striking a chord, but not coming across as, I guess, like, a jerk?
Well, I dropped the link. Drop the link to the if you pull up the chat here, Chris, the campaign you're talking about is for the Rolston in Vancouver. This is when prices were $349,000. And the best part about that ad, if you scroll down, because they got so much reaction from it, they took another ad campaign out that was equally hysterical. If you read the last line there, Chris, because I think this is like a great little like tongue-in-cheek here for these guys.
Yeah. And for the record, we deny the rumor regarding the tower and the Rolston having sex, nor did the Rolston have sex with the Wave condominiums. Yeah, I mean, they leaned into it. They doubled down, right? Yeah. They doubled down, and this is still up, which is super cool. Yeah. But yeah, I did not think that would still be around. And there was some, there were videos that were like so cool that came out of Australia, but they were, way too like sexual in nature, turned a lot of people off. So what is the risky campaign that you're willing to recommend? I always get nervous here.
Listen, well, first off, I will say, like, all I'm really advocating for here is to take a shot. And there's a general rule when it comes to marketing is you can always punch up, you should never punch down. Meaning that if you're punching down, you're a bully. But if you're punching up, you're kind of punching above your weight class, it's completely fair game. It's not about being negative. It's not about being sexual. It's not about being, irreverent. It's about just trying to insert some personality and soul into your advertising campaigns and have fun with it. And I think what Spotify does a great job on is they're just funny ads, right? This person listened to I Took a Pill in Ibiza 52 times on the 9th of February. Everyone celebrates Pancake Day differently. It's a funny ad, right? And you just kind of promotes the product. And Spotify, by the way, just overtook Apple in the most popular, music app out there, despite the fact that Apple Podcast is, downloaded natively on every single iPhone. So it's an incredible brand, incredible product, and they actually, have some fun with their ads. So my advice would be, yes, you obviously have to walk that line, but I don't really have any pro tip there, Chris, because you're walking the line. It's going to feel comfortable.
Well, I'll give just one example that comes to mind in our industry recently is, SNL, who's sort of allowed to be controversial. Yeah. They did the big Zillow parody where it was like, basically, and it went viral. Yeah. And people loved it. And Zillow even, hopped on the back of it and got some additional press out of it.
I'm going to drop the link in the chat here so people can see this on Zoom, and we'll share it on the live stream as well afterwards. And Postmates kind of does the same thing. I think, and again, what we're trying to do here is,
they're not saying a name, by the way. They're not saying, hey, Chris Smith from Orlando, Florida, quit playing, the Ibiza song 52 times in a row.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no enemy, really.
So can you read the last one for me on the bottom right-hand side?
Yeah. When you're afraid to pronounce acai in public, we get it.
I'm that guy. I can't say that word. I call them IKEA. Yes.
Well, remember the State Farm commercial where the guy's saying, don't be like your parents, and they're trying to say quinoa and none of them could say quinoa properly. So yeah, I think it's one of the chapters and principles in people work is that human companies win. Yeah. And when we pick our friends and when we pick our social circles, we want people to be funny and to have a personality. Yeah. But then when we sort of clock in for business, it's like, you can't ever make a joke. So be careful, but there is a way to sort of do risky the right way. I really love the Shopify one. Your mom should be your first customer, not your only customer. This one, we would probably do these things, Jimmy. The only home that most real estate agents sold last year was their mom's. You know, how about 50% of realtors sell 0 homes per year?
Yeah.
Like that is just true. And I love Lattice. Invest in your people, not crypto. Right.
And they're sort of news jacking here. And I'll give you another one. I think, like, as we're brainstorming live on this, Chris, I think going back to your mom should be your first customer, not your only customer. I think, like, 28% of realtors have another job. We don't, right? This is a full-time job. Like, you can play it off, because remember, you're competing against the perception that you're just like the 1.5 million other realtors. So you have to find points of distinction, differentiation, and really focus on those points that help elevate your brand.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of people asking about the recording. This will be up on our YouTube channel. We'll email this out, possibly put it on iTunes and Spotify as a podcast as well. I actually saw this one on the left that I thought was great from Netflix. And these are what I guess you would say a little bit more positive on the risky side. Don't give up on your dreams. We started with DVDs. You actually read this, Total Success from Oatly. Let's get into number 7. And this is something where, if you talk to all these branding experts, people like Mark Davison from 1000 Watt, right? And even when we recently hired Alice, who's just really good at marketing and messaging and strategy.
Yeah.
One of the things they always help you focus on is what's going to be different about your customer's life because they worked with you, right? Like, what's the transformation that someone goes through when they decide to hire Curaytor? Yeah. This example is with a wallet, but what is the sort of before and after approach, if you will? Like, clearly the one that comes to mind for me is like physique, right? You had a dad bod, now you got a 6-pack. You transformed. What is that in real estate, though?
Well, I think real estate, there's so many examples, Chris, of transformation. I think in a lot of cases, that's the business that all of you are in. You're in the business of transformation. People are coming to you because they don't like their current state of what they're living. Now, of course, people might have to move, but they want a better life. They buy a house, they sell their house because they're ready to make that next step. So I think what you can do in this case is to recognize, like, maybe it's going from an apartment to your first house, or maybe it's going from living with your parents, right, to like having people over for holidays, like whatever those moments are, like you're there to facilitate that experience, that journey. And by the way, it's an incredibly important job. And I think, and I think from my perspective, just being really clear about what that is, Chris, it's a great opportunity to say, like, this is what we actually do. You guys do not sell houses. You help people make decisions, right? So they can move on to the next chapter of their life. And you facilitate that decision through your experience. Like, you don't sell houses. That's not what you do. So I think this is a good example of just like using transformation as a way to say, this is what people ultimately want. They want to go from point A to point B, and you're there to help them.
Yeah, well, you're right. The fastball down the middle for this tactic would actually be a first-time home buyer, right? Because obviously, like, better than throwing money out the window every month. Like, I can't find it in real time here, but there was an ad that I put into a campaign that I just thought was amazing. I put it in all my speeches. And the lawn sign in front of the home, the only thing the lawn sign said was "beat your mom's basement."
Yeah.
And that was the only thing that the sign said. And they had other sort of signs like that. But in a world where we have sort of banner blindness to a lot of signs, that sign really took off. So yeah, like, and think about it, Jimmy, with the pandemic, right? Like, picture, like, go from this where you're like, you and your family are all cramped in this one room to this, right? Go from working at home, quote unquote, which is like sitting in your living room, to working from home with a big, beautiful office, right? Things of that nature. I think there's a lot of ways to kind of show that transformation. And another thing I thought of with this, George Costanza, my kids don't know who George Costanza is.
Mm-hmm.
Millions and millions of people don't know who George Costanza is. George had a big fat wallet, right? Like that was like one of the most funniest episodes of Seinfeld of all time. Like they could have also said like George Costanza needs a Bellroy, right? Like, because that would have also kind of said, hey, if you're over a certain age, this is appropriate for you, right? Because my son Lucas, he don't know who George Costanza is. So I think some of those references kind of, we're not trying to say be ageist or break any laws, but you can kind of guide the messaging to the person that it's meant for. Prudential does a good job, and they're kind of a big, boring financial services company, kind of a faceless brand. I don't know anybody that works at Prudential. I used to work with them on the real estate side when they were more into that world, but I love these ads because they're simple and they're impactful. Talk through these.
Well, I think you're hitting on the head, which is this is an organization that is a very big brand that sells pretty boring financial instruments to people who are looking to retire. Selling retirement is not easy. And I think they do a great job with this the one to the left-hand side to me is probably the one that would be most relevant for real estate, which is 68% of retirees wish they saved more, 0 wish they saved less. So I think this idea of, if you were to ask the average person, do you wish you bought a house in 7 years ago? Today, right? Like 73% of people wish they bought a house 7 years ago, right? 0% wish they didn't, So you can play around with this idea that like real estate is a phenomenal investment. It is a stable investment over time. It is one of the best investments other than, I think, like fine art. It's like right there in terms of appreciation over the last 50 years. So I just think there's an opportunity to say, ultimately, you want people to you want people to move in a direction where they are like, you're encouraging them to do the right thing, even if they don't want to do it. It's kind of like eat your vegetables. And that's kind of what Prudential is doing here. It's kind of an eat your vegetables kind of ad campaign. So I'm just a big fan of it. Anytime a boring company has a great ad, we obviously look to that as inspiration, Chris.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a lot of ways to look at this. Like 92% of renters wish they owned a home. 0% of homeowners wish they were renting.
I love that. That's perfect.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Take that.
Yeah, and I like this one. We spend more time spell checking than planning for retirement. I think that is actually a really interesting angle for a marketing company like ours to take.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Economist ad, but it would say like, we spell check everything. Robots can't take your job if you're retired. If you're already retired. I like that one. So they do a good job. So last two things here. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, just building on the last one you just had there, I like, it's going back to the other one. Robots can't take your job if you're already retired, right? It's like, what's going on with rental prices right now? They're skyrocketing across America. So like rental prices are going up, 15%, 20%, almost higher than appreciation in some markets. Like you don't care if you own a home. So I think there's an opportunity there to kind of, again, use that rental angle.
Yeah, and I mean, the reason Zillow bowed out of iBuying is they said, virtually word for word, our algorithm can't accurately predict how much a home is worth. Like that's a pretty powerful quote from them. And then if it said ours can. A lot of good ideas there. Number 9, comparison ads. I know a lot of times people are afraid to do this. I picture like if I'm, the number 1 agent, do I do like a feature matrix of like, software companies do this all the time. Like, here's all the features Curaytor has, here's all the features Boomtown has, here's all the features, real estate webmasters have, here's the features we have that they don't. Very common in the software world, but it's less common in the services world. So I love the idea of comparing, us to them, but it also feels a little bit dangerous if you're specific. So what would you do here?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Chris, which is specificity matters here. So I'll give you an example. You can use a caricature in real estate, which is people tend to hire, in the absence of knowing an agent, they tend to hire someone who they're familiar with. And that's oftentimes like their cousin's brother who just got their real estate license. That's why so many people who are like inexperienced and kind of pick up a couple random deals and really have no business doing that. So I think the us versus them is almost like us. Let's say you're experienced, you sold a bunch of houses, you generate great results for your customers, and them being like the inexperienced friend of a friend who just got their license. So you could do something like, years of experience, us, 36, them, less than 1, right? Home sold, 1,000, them, 0 or 2. And then you can do something like, we will see you at Thanksgiving. No, them, yes, right? Like you kind of play off of that a little bit. Like you shouldn't really mix friends and family and business. So I think you could do that as opposed to saying like Jimmy versus Chris. Like, no, that's not what we're suggesting here.
It's almost like us versus Fizbo, us versus iBuyer, us versus the average agent, right? Which is what you're saying. Which I do think is actually really important, because it's funny when we were working with Phil Jones and he would say, what are the words that you think people think of when they think about a real estate agent or a salesperson? It's like all these negative words come to mind. And then he just said, what about when they hire a professional agent? And it's like, oh, professional agent. And then all these positive words come to mind. So I think it's more professional versus average, professional versus part-time, with our help, without our help, through the internet, Carvana style versus old school, regular way. I think there's a huge opportunity to do comparison ads. And I'll give people a good book recommendation. It's called They Ask, You Answer, our buddy Marcus Sheridan. And he goes through these exercises where it's like, if you don't answer these questions, then the marketplace is going to answer them for you. And you're better off to answer them than let other people answer them. Jimmy, number 10, and we'll wrap it up. Rent the runway. I don't know what that means. You're obviously subscribed to some, newsletters that I'm not. You complimented my shirt, but all I wear is t-shirts.
Yes.
So what happened here that caused you to want to showcase Rent the Runway?
Well, what they're doing, and we got Yvonne in the chat saying Rent the Runway is the best. They only rent women's clothes, to be clear. This is not a Rent the Runway shirt. The thing that Rent the Runway does that I loved is they're making email social. And so we for those of us who grew up in advertising and marketing, we all remember As Seen on TV. You go to the grocery store, you see As Seen on TV, and it was almost like an endorsement. Oh, this must be a great product. It was on TV. And so I love the modern version of that, As Seen on Instagram. And now, so what I would encourage people to do, and we do this actually once a month, Chris and I send an email newsletter out that recaps our best hits from Instagram, because we're putting out a ton of content on Instagram. And so we just do a recap email. So I think the opportunity here is if you're promoting a listing on, let's say, Instagram, brand new home that just hit the market, you can take a photo of that home, a screenshot of the Instagram ad that you're running or post, and then do As Seen on Instagram, our newest listing just hit the market, and they can click through to the actual Instagram post, which then will get you more engagement, more followers, and help build a better connection between your audience on email and your audience on social media. So I'm just a big fan of this idea of kind of cross-pollinating between these different channels for us.
Yeah, and really this is what our clients are relying on us to do, is to sort of crowdsource and find and then apply. This was actually really fun to kind of go through the exercise in real time of what's the real estate version of this. For anybody that would like our help with their marketing and advertising, you guys can head over to Curaytor.com. I'll pull it up. I'll drop this in the chat as well. We are exclusive by area. So the first step is to basically kind of like Smile Direct Club, see if I'm a candidate, right? So check availability. You can click that button. I'll drop this link in the Zoom chat. And we would love for you guys to reach out to us. We'll check your area. We can help you with your marketing, get it done right. get it done the best way possible, stand out from your competition, focus on listings. You know, we basically are helping listing agents win more listings. And to do that, I'm trying to put the link in at the same time here, Jimmy, sorry.
You good?
To do that, I want it to be clickable. There we go. So just head over to Curaytor. To do that, there's no shortcuts. You know, kind of like the Adams shoes. There's no secret way to win listings. There's no secret seller lead generation tool that's going to get you listings. You have to become a listing agent. You have to make your marketing and your ads and your strategies and your follow-up and your brand and your messaging. You have to make it a magnet so that you can start attracting listings and stop chasing leads. That is really the brand promise of Curaytor. We want you to be the best at marketing, the best at advertising in your market. We want you to be able to go to somebody that owns a home and say, if you hire us, we are going to do better marketing and advertising for your home than any other agent in this area. And we can prove it because we outsourced it and we partnered with the best marketing company in the industry. You guys don't outsource, you don't do your own photos, you don't film your own videos. We're not sure that you should run your own ads and Instagram and all these other things when it comes to a listing. We'd love to help you. Anything else to add to that, Jimmy?
No, I just, you know, the replay is going to be available on YouTube. We'll share some of the links with the notes as well, along with the deck. I think when it comes to people who are looking to hire a marketing agency, you know, ultimately there's one thing that we've seen, Chris, at Curaytor, which is the people who hire Curaytor who are massively successful are ones who are making investments in their brand, who are trying to do things differently, who are focused on saying, I understand that the future is about making sure that my business and my message is different than the competition. You know, we work with 500 of the top teams across the country. And as you mentioned earlier, you know, we like to push them to share new ideas. We like to, you know, highlight one of the wins that they have in the community. And the thing that makes us Curaytor and the things that makes us who we are today is the fact that we are an incredibly innovative company. And we just feel like right now, when you look to the future, Chris, forget about this year or last year, when you look to the future, 2022 and beyond, the old model is going to die a slow death. The world is moving, it's changing. This sort of forced registration, chase them until they convert, you know, this is just the end of an era. And so what you have to do is say, am I going to invest in the past, which is that, or am I going to invest in the future, which in our case is creating better content, adding more value to consumers, attracting business so you don't have to chase. So where all of our resources, all of our energy, and all our focus is going to the future, Chris, is on that, because that's where the world is today.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, thank you, Jimmy. Thank you guys for tuning in. Head over to Instagram, say hello to Jimmy and I. You can follow us there. We put out great content there every single week. Thanks to Annette, Bethany, Amber, everybody else that helped us promote this webinar. Good stuff, Jimmy. Thank you so much.